Yeah. This is for all you non-philosophizing black sheep, unwelcome, pushed to the side motherfuckers like me.
Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Ha ha ha. Let's get down to business. These bitches got glitches. And you thought you'd dismiss us? Nah. Now I'm laughing in stitches. See, the problem be, it'll be a tragic travesty to come after me. So just know this is how we get down. Respect that shit like a pronoun, bitch. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Yeah. And fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, atheist your way.
Oh, that's the real apples. Yeah, man. You looking like the devil who created you.
Good evening. Your boy Oz is with you. Sorry, I'm making all right, we're good. No, what's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging out. Wonderful Thursday evening. No work tonight, so we'll talk a little mythology, mythicisms, and shit. But before we do that, let's hit a couple announcements here, if I can scroll up and get it. Shit. There was something in particular that I was looking for, and I can't find it, damn it. Great start to the show. Good job, Oz. Anyway, I was going to put up the Shroudatoran picture, but it appears that I deleted it. And I was just saying, it doesn't count as evidence. It's been debunked. Ontangelo. As Jena would say, any hoot. We'll get to the announcements here. So next week will be the final episode of in our Discord that we're reviewing the Netflix original documentary on the why do I always say that? FDLS. I said it was the last one last week, but it's actually the last one this coming week. And I've already chosen the next little documentary we're watching. It's going to be fun. And so we'll have that next week. Keep sweet, pray, and obey. And then also next week, we have the next installment of Chopping It Up with Jena and Oz. And we're going to talk about fasting and praying and how healthy that shit is. And then the always beautiful Jena with her solo show, hashtag not ladylike, and she'll be premiering a new intro, a new banger. When waiting on God becomes toxic, which is all the time, if you ask me. But you know, it's about having the discussion. And then, last but not least, part 3 of Comfortable with the Uncomfortable. And we're gonna talk about authenticity and what that looks like, or I guess should look like to each of us as individuals, why it's important, so on and so forth. So we're gonna have a panel of, I think, 8 this time, talking about that. So it'll be super dope, super dope. But let's get into the proceedings this evening. So if you're new to Tang, welcome, welcome, welcome. The Atheist Network Group, hashtag Tang Gang, hashtag Atheist Your Way, hashtag Jesus is a Myth, hashtag Faith is Bullshit. We do a lot of hashtags around here, but it's fun. But before we do that, if you're new to Tang, we do this little thing. Anytime you hear the music, it's drinking time. Yeah, yeah. Laid back. All right, before I get into the Vigia here, I do want to plug, because when needed, if needed tonight, I'll be using one of my favorite resources for this particular topic, and that is the app from the Godless engineer put together. So shout out to GE. Was also the one-time champ of the Tang Ultimate Debate Tournament. So, and there's pictures floating around somewhere where he's got the championship belt over. So anyway, if you don't have this app, I would go get it right now. It's either $6.99 or $7.99. You can get it on either Apple or Google Play Store, and download it. It's worth it. Well worth the investment, especially if you enjoy this topic. And you can see that a lot of different resources, a lot of different places they go for the information on the app. So again, Chrestus, Chrestus. If you ain't got it, you're missing out. You're missing out. Let me load this here video. Now this is this is coming from a pastor. I forget where the church is at, but they were doing a series at this church on basically trying to bring faith and science together, which still blows my mind that they think they can do that with a God claim. But this particular part of the series, they're talking about the problem of the Christ myth. And I've watched most of this. Well, I guess not most of it, about half of it. And I prefer to listen to pastors and even, just your average day lay people talk about what they find is convincing evidence or good reasons to believe. Yeah, because those are the people I'm going to talk to every day. And I don't hang out with scholars and historians and that kind of thing. So I love to hear what convinces them, and then go fact check or verify and clarify what it is that they be saying. So let's get down to business. I ain't got no time to play around with this. Okay, I'm done.
first question is, what is the Christ myth? What is this thing? And really, we got to understand that it's really the biggest conspiracy theory in the history of the world. And it's basically this, that Jesus Christ never actually existed. That what happened is the early church came together and created Jesus out of mythologies that predated Christianity. Mythologies that came from Egypt and the Greco-Roman cultures and the Hindu cultures that were thousands of years before Jesus. They looked up at the stars, they saw the constellations, and they created cosmic Messiah stories of virgin births and kings that came to the birth of this cosmic Messiah. This cosmic Messiah had 12.
Anytime I always find it interesting when the Christian brings this up first, because as soon as you interject that into the conversation, now my automatic pushback is going to be every time, how can you show, demonstrate, or prove that he's not just a recreation or, another invention that was spawned from all these other Greek mythologies, right? Like, how can you demonstrate it wasn't that? So I always find it interesting when they inject that first.
12 disciples and fed 5,000 people and walked on water, died on a cross, raised 3 days after he died. All of that was long before Jesus, and all Jesus Christ is a guy the early church came up with and said, let's reappropriate these ancient myths and create a new Messiah, and we'll just make up a religion. All right, that's the idea. And it's very popular, and it's a conspiracy theory that Christianity is the greatest story ever sold, that we're just making this up. We're trying to fool everybody. And I have a buddy I was talking to the other day, and it was September 11th, so we were talking about September 11th, and he goes, oh yeah, September 11th, those planes didn't really go in those buildings. They set detonation and they collapsed those buildings. It was all controlled demolition and an inside job. I'm like, oh, so you're crazy, right? So what we got to understand is conspiracy theories are so interesting because people attach themselves to them, right? JFK, was shot by multiple people, and Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy, and UFOs came down in Roswell, New Mexico, and we've never been to the moon. And Stanley Kubrick, when he did The Shining, it's a film basically with a built-in confession that he just.
See, I called it before we even started. Whether this person is serious or not, I don't know. But I told you. I told you. I done been told you. Somebody gonna say the shit. Somebody is gonna say the shit. That deserves a drink.
My mind on my money and my money on my mind.
Wouldn't shock me if that's one of Antangelo's sock accounts. He loves him the little shroud. The little shroud that they drew pictures on and shit.
Film the moon landing, and it's all a joke, and we're just trying to fool everybody that we got there because JFK said we'd get there by the end of the decade, and so we had to. So it was 1969, so we made it up, we put it in the studio, all of this stuff, the X-Files, right? I want to believe, right? That's kind of what's embedded in us, is this sense of, I don't want to just take what's in front of me as natural. I want to create a conspiracy theory. Now, how popular is this? The Christ conspiracy is very popular all over the place on university campuses. I walk down the streets of Vancouver and people are there with booths handing this stuff out. I walked up to my neighbor a short time ago and I was sharing Christ with him. And he said, listen, I know you're a pastor. I know you try to do good for people. But the reality is your religion is the greatest story ever sold. And here's why. And he starts to unpack like he'd read the script, man. Horus had 12 disciples. Horus was this. Dionysus, Mithras, Krishna, virgin birth. But all this born in December 25th. I'm like, oh man, this is like we're having our coffee. I'm like, this is too early for this. All right. So this is like regular stuff. I want to show Bill Maher had a movie called Religious. I'm not sure anyone saw it, but
he's going to play this clip on here. And I just, for the record, I've watched Mars movie, documentary, film, whatever the fuck you want to call it. In my opinion, even as an atheist, as a skeptic, there's a couple times I'd have to go back and rewatch it again, but he says a couple kind of outlandish things, but for the most part, I think he's driving home the point, and he's achieving what I at least I think the goal is in the documentary, but does ask a lot of great questions though throughout it to the Christians there. But this one's ironic to me from a satirical standpoint. You'll see what I mean if you've not seen it. This part's pretty funny, and I love that the pastor used it.
He put it out a bunch of years ago, and here's a scene from that movie unpacking. Of course, he goes to the Holy Land experience, the Christian theme park in Orlando, Florida, the kind of the pinnacle of Christian thought and philosophy. He goes there and he starts talking to people who are there. And there's a guy dressed up like Jesus because he's putting on the Passion Play at 4 p.m. or whatever he's doing. And he talks to him and he unpacks this. So I'm going to show you that clip so you kind of understand what the framework of the Christ myth is in pop.
See, that's when I would have to ask this Jesus fellow. So we look at the Greek mythologies, and then we look at the Jesus character that supposedly existed in the Bible. Just because it's written down on a piece of paper, somebody wrote it down on a piece of paper, does it make it true? Or etched it in a stone, or put it on a scroll, chiseled out in a wall way back in the Dizay. Does that make it, just because it was written down, does that mean it's true? No. If that's the case, we can claim a lot of things to be true just because it was written down in a book.
There's a whole bunch of other data that comes out of that clip. It goes through a bunch of different Christian, different people. So here's the first question. Did Jesus Christ really exist, historically speaking? Now, a bunch of months ago, I watched an actual clip of Buzz Aldrin, who was one of the first guys. He actually went with Neil Armstrong to the moon. And a guy walked up to him and he said, "Hey, Buzz Aldrin, the moon landing was a hoax. It never actually happened." And Buzz Aldrin was sitting there and he's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You guys set it up. It was a big propaganda piece. It was a conspiracy." And Buzz Aldrin just punched the guy in the face. All right. Which was a perfect response to a bunk conspiracy. All right. So spiritually speaking, that's what we should all do when it comes to this kind of stuff. So the first question is, did Jesus Christ actually exist? And on the level of conspiracy theories, the idea that Jesus never actually existed is on the level of we never actually went to the moon. One writer, Edwin Yamauchi, a professor of history at Miami University, says this: any argument that challenges the claim of a historical Jesus is so ridiculous in the scholarly community, it is relegated only to the world of footnotes. Now, the reason he says this is because there's a whole bunch of reasons. First one off the bat is historians tell us that there's at least 10 people that were not biblical, so outside of the Bible, who mention Jesus Christ in history. So these are people who weren't necessarily friends of Christianity. They were first century historians. Josephus, Pliny the Younger, Tacitus, and so on. So let me give you a couple of examples. This is outside the Bible, people who are even against Christianity that mention Jesus. So here's Tacitus. Here's what he says. Nero fastened the guilt. He's talking about a fire that happened in Rome on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Chrestus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of the procurator Pontius Pilatus. All right, Josephus says this: about this time there lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man, for he wrought surprising feats. He was the Christ. When Pilate condemned him to be crucified, those who had come to love him did not give up their affection for him. On the third day, he appeared restored to life, and the tribe of Christians has not disappeared. And so what you got to understand is people looked into this story and they said Jesus actually existed. He died under Pontius Pilate. There's a ton of historical reference points to the point of Christianity. Even Bart Ehrman, who was a Christian and became an agnostic, who studied this time, said, of course Jesus actually existed. This is there is more evidence for the existence of Jesus Christ than the founder of any religion on the planet, in human history and humankind's experience of developing religion and philosophy. There is more actual evidence that Jesus existed. Now, here's a second issue around the question of did Jesus exist? The rise of the early church is actually a massive problem if Jesus never really existed, because here you have a movement that actually moves so quick, and it was a group of people who said, not only did Jesus exist, he died on the cross, but he rose from death, and we worship him. And it wasn't a group of people who kind of came up with this without implication for their life, where they just said, oh, I've got some teachings of Jesus and now nothing bad's happening to me. They started to get persecuted. And one thing that happened is they started to get ripped apart by lions, thrown into gladiatorial arenas. Their kids were killed. And so they suffered immense pressure. This was a group of people who would then go out and take care of people who were sick.
Again, how do you know this to be true? How do you know this to be true? And just to go back real quick, because I kind of let the video play while I went back, because I wanted to make sure that I was correct before I said this. But this is one of the things I said, like Bill Maher. I don't know if he's talking out of his ass or he's just being highly assumptive or both. But from everything that I've read, and I was kind of going through the Chrestus app as well. Just I don't have time to go through line by line, but Horus, from what I remember, what I can find, Horus was not crucified and did not have 12 disciples. So like a couple of those things, that's what I was talking about. It was like, again, I know what you're trying to do. I think overall you did a good job, as collectively speaking, big picture, though, the entire documentary or whatever. But there are a couple things where he either assumed or he was just talking shit and talking out of his ass, or both. So just wanted to clear that up. But yeah, again, just because it's written down and there's somebody that wrote it down at some time that also got passed down through word of mouth, does that make it true? And is faith the only thing we can hang our hats on to know it to be true? And we all know how I feel about faith. We need that evidence. We need that evidence. Nah, dog. Nice try. Valiant effort. A for effort. Come on. Let's do better than that. You got to show that junk. By the way, if you want to see a really funny fucking Instagram account, there's I think it's called Preachers or Pastor Shoes, or Preachers or Pastors in Shoes, or something like that, and it shows all the different shoes that these pastors wear and how much money they cost. It's disgusting and hilarious all at the same time.
sick and actually get the disease themselves and die because, as history looks back, they weren't afraid of death. And the only explanation for the reason they weren't afraid of death, why they were willing to face torture and never recanted their testimony that they saw the risen Jesus, not like a few people, hundreds of them, and then thousands of them into year, and then millions of them into year 200, 300 AD. 50% of the Roman Empire became people. What happened? Historians look back and go, there's no explanation, because if a group of people just get together, nobody dies for a lie that they made up. No one dies for a lie that you say. You might die for a lie you think is true, but not one that you came together with a group of people and said, hey, let's come up with a lie. Let's actually lie about this, and let's just make up a religion. What happens? The minute you start getting fried on a pan, which is what happened to people, the minute they start ripping your fingernails out, threatening to kill your children, sawing your body in half, you kind of go, okay, we made it up. But none of these people did. And history looks back and goes, there's no better explanation than these people actually saw their leader rise from death, that they saw him crucified, that 3 days later they saw him raised.
No. No. Nope. You don't get to just wiggle that in there, a little wiggle. Who saw it? And for fucking crying out loud, who wrote the shit down? Who authored the damn books? Like, you're trying to like smuggle and wiggle a lot of shit in there, bro. But we need that evidence.
From death, and the early church actually took off from there. I was reading a book about conspiracies, and this one guy talked about the idea. He's an ex-homicide detective, and he goes in and he investigates murders, and he says, here's the issue after.
Now, John, God damn it. John Christian should be up there. He should be the motherfucker with the microphone. Give John Christian the microphone, please. Pass the mic. Your time is up. They believed what they thought doesn't mean it's true.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Come on, man. We got to do better.
30, 40 years of being a homicide detective, as you're studying evidence for what happened in a particular situation, he said, issue number one is you always have to resist a conspiracy theory, because most of the time it's what it looks like. You constantly, as a detective, have to resist when people come in and go, but what if this, what if this, what if this happened? And what if this group?
And not to get too far off on a tangent here, but Bible verse says, damn, Jesus let folks die for him. That's cold-blooded. And I'm going to apply all the puns to that. But it's funny that, you know, you'll hear Christian theists, well, Christ came to blah, 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 new covenant, new blah, 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 right? Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, all that. But yet this Yahweh God, he's still really cool and has this weird, sick fascination with either burning flesh in the Old Testament or even making sure that he watches his son get brutally, if he was real, if any of it's real, get brutally murdered to clean up his fuck-ups. And it just sits up there like, attaboy. Well done, my good and faithful servant. I meant son. I meant sacrifice. Whoever you are. I mean, what kind of sick shit is that, man? What dad signs their son? What dad signs their son up willingly, and is the originator of the idea to do that to one's son? Get the fuck out.
And the reason he said you have to always resist a conspiracy theory is because conspiracy theories are very rare by definition. There's not a lot of them that actually can be pulled off. And the reason is because what you need for a conspiracy theory to work is you need a limited amount of people. He said ideally 2 people involved, and once the deed is done, you kill the other one, right? That's the best way a conspiracy actually works, because the minute 2 people know about it, bad things are going to happen. Secondly, you need really good forms of communication. And thirdly, you can't be applied any pressure, or the conspiracy theory will break really quickly. Now, let me give you an example that illustrates all 3 of these things. I was golfing about a month ago with 3 of my buddies. Okay, so we arrive at the golf course and it's wet. And those of you who are golfers know.
We're going to go from talking about the biblical historical accuracy of Jesus the Christ, according to the Bible, to now an analogy of he and his homeboys playing golf in their skinny jeans. I don't even know what he says here. I must have missed this part, or I didn't watch as far into this as I thought I did. This is going to be good. Hey, Aaron, I got a feeling we about to get some evidence.
That when you get a cart, you want to be able to pull up to your ball and be near your ball. But this day they said, you can't go on the fairways. It's too wet. You got to stay on the cart path. Now, one of my buddies, a bunch of years ago, he got in an accident on his bike and his motorbike, not his bicycle. And he had multiple surgeries. He was 6 months in a wheelchair. He has ankles that are all made of like steel and screws and all that kind of stuff. So I said to my other buddy, I said, well, he's not here yet. Why don't we make sure we can go and we get the handicap flag? Because they'll take a flag. It's a big orange flag. And
Sorry, I hate to stop right in the middle of a story, but this kind of stuff bugs me. And Yeshua, whatever your name is. First of all, I love Amy, and I do appreciate her being hospitable and being kind to you in the chat. And you have been decent with her and kind as well. But this stream is about Jesus and the historical accuracy and mythicism. Why do you, or what seems most, if not a lot, of Christians love to come into these side chats and talk about everything but what's being talked about on screen and distracting from the point? So I would just ask that you be respectful of that, and y'all can have that conversation. Like, get it. I know Amy would probably love to have you on her show, but just respect what's going on. Just watch the room, bro. Watch the room.
Put it on your cart if you're handicapped, and then you can drive right up to the ball. So I said, why don't we get that? And so he goes, oh, okay, that's a good idea. So the guy went in, he said, hey, my buddy's handicapped. Can you get us that flag? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll bring it out. So we're all sitting over here, and my buddy arrives, and he's on the phone. And so we're over here getting drinks and getting ready to go, and he's on the phone, and we're like, hey, you're handicapped. And he's like, what? And he keeps talking like this. And so we're over here, and he's standing there, and a guy walks out with the flag, and he's like, he gets off the phone. He's like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, this is your flag. He's like, what do I need? What's the flag? What do you mean the flag? He's like, oh, because you're handicapped. And he's like, do I look handicapped? Screams at the guy, and the guy's standing there, and he's like, I'm really sorry, sir. And then he goes back inside, and my buddy's like, what's going on here? He's like, 2 minutes later, I come around the corner. I'm like, where's the flag? He's like, what flag? I'm like, the handicap flag. He's like, why do we? I said, you're handicapped. He's like,
Otangela, if you actually refrain from continuing to do what you've been doing here, you said you would cease and stop. So as long as you're going to be respectful, then no, I won't. But if you jump on some other bullshit, then yes, I will in a heartbeat. I have no problem doing it. I know other channels let the conversation go all over the place and let you say, and other Christians say and do whatever they want. That's just not how we operate. So if you want to be cool, you want to be respectful, then no, I won't. But the minute you do, yeah, each one of your sock accounts that pop up, yes, I have no problem blocking it.
I'm handicapped. I'm like, yes, you need to be. He's like, oh, shoot. So he goes back into the pro shop. He's like, oh, you said handicapped. Yeah, that's me. Totally. Right? The issue is you need very clear lines of communication. You all need to be on the same page. You need to have no pressure applied at all. And of course, the early church gets all this pressure applied. They actually die believing this stuff. And so history has looked back to the rise of the early church and said, something actually happened here. Now, let's get into the issues of the comparison of these Horus things and all of that kind of stuff. First off, the people who promote the Christ myth, whether it's a Chara S in her book, The Christ Conspiracy, Tom Harper, just to let you know how popular this is, Tom Harper wrote a book called The Pagan Christ. It was the best-selling book in Canada in 2004. The best-selling book in Canada in 2004 was a book about the Christ myth. That's what Canadians actually think about. And so there's a movie called Zeitgeist, The God Who Wasn't There. These are all...
Can anyone tell me what the fuck he just said? Words, more words on words. I felt like that was a big old double stacked Christian Oreo with no point. And when you bit into the Oreo, it wasn't the real shit. Like it was toothpaste or something in there that you're like, like what the fuck just happened? What did he say?
I'm a bad boy.
The popular frameworks of this theory. Now, they get facts wrong. For instance, Zeitgeist makes this claim about the symbolic number 12, and it says Christianity built all of its symbolism of 12 based on the 12-month calendar and the zodiac. And it says, quote, in the Bible, there are 12 tribes of Israel, 12 princes, 12 kings, and 12 judges. So here's what we just need to slow down the tape. I know it's less sexy to do that, but we need to slow down the tape and actually get into facts. The Bible has a...
God, I love it. I do. Yeah, see, I didn't get this far. I didn't get nearly as far as I thought I'd. I love it when we need. Hold on, I'm going to start this. I'm going to come back to this comment. Hold on. We need to know the facts. Followed by, the Bible says. Oh, man. Nah, bro. It's not the way this shit works, bro. You don't get to say we want the facts and then you say the Bible says. Not the way this shit works, bro. But see, this is the part though that pisses me off is like he's saying, and however many, I'm sure there's hundreds of people listening to him live right now in person, and they all just eat this shit up, man. Why? Because he said it. They look at him as a credible source or resource or leader in their life, and they just eat this shit up. They never go research this shit. They never go look this shit up. Pastor said it. It must be true. Shigabahai, passing the devil by shut about a Honda. I felt the Holy Ghost. Nah, man, go look that shit up. Go look that shit up. Don't believe it just because your pastor told you that shit was true, because guess what? At the end of the day, that motherfucker don't give a shit about you. And that's a whole nother conversation. He don't give a fuck about you. Watch. Stop going to the church. You don't even have to go to another church. Stop going to the church for 3-4 weeks, whatever. And as soon as you're out of sight and you're out of mind, boom, you don't matter anymore. They're not going to come and check on you. As soon as you stop giving your money or giving your energy or giving your talents to him or her in that building, they're ghosts, bro. I don't give a fuck about you. Real talk.
A couple of instances for sure where there's 12 tribes of Israel, and then of course Jesus gets 12 disciples based off the 12 tribes of Israel, but it never mentions any 12 princes. There's no 12 princes, there's no 12 kings, there's no 12 judges. There's far more kings and far more judges than that. Secondly, it talks about the idea that Horus had 12 disciples. The reality is most of these writers don't deal with any of the primary sources. They never go to Egypt and look at the hieroglyphs. They just cite each other. And so they say, look, Horus had 12 disciples. Then you look into Achara S.'s book, The Christ Conspiracy, and you go to her footnote, and all she's doing is quoting George Massey. She's not quoting hieroglyphs. She's just quoting another guy who said the same thing.
And that's all you're doing with the Bible, bro. That's all you're doing with the Bible. See why this is problematic? Do you see why this is problematic? You're doing the same shit, bro. I think them skinny jeans cutting off the oxygen to your brain. Come on, man.
The problem is on the hieroglyphs, Horus only had 4 disciples: a turtle, a bear, a lion, and a tiger. All right, so the reality is the 4 people hanging around Horus does not actually equal a parallel. But are there parallels? So let's get into some of these massive claims of the parallels with Christianity. First, let's deal with Horus. He's the most popular ancient god that predates Christianity in this debate. So here's what they say about him. First, that he was born of a virgin. Was Horus born of a virgin? If you get into the stories of Horus, here's how Horus was actually conceived. His mother's name was Isis. His father's name was Osiris. Here's how Isis conceived of Horus. Osiris was in a fight with another god. He got cut up. Isis then came over his body parts, which were cut up on the ground, and she hovered over his severed phallus, and that's how she got impregnated to actually say, hey, now I'm pregnant and I can have Horus. Now, I'm not sure that's considered a virgin conception. All right. Secondly, it says not only was he born of a virgin, he was born on December 25th. And of course, everyone freaks out. Oh, my goodness. But of course, you and I know as Christians, that's not a parallel with Christianity because, and I don't want to ruin anybody's Christmas, but I'm about to, Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. Historians tell us he was probably born sometime in September or October. The reason we celebrate it is because in just before 400 AD,
I love that. The reason we celebrate there is somewhere after 400 AD. What'd you say? Huh? Come on, man. We got to do better than this. I'm still waiting for the evidence. And all I've heard so far is you playing golf. I've heard a lot more about Greek myths than I have any evidence for Jesus. So it's funny. Oh, and I love it. Hold on. Where'd it go? Oh, I just saw it. Where'd it go? There it is. Straw man much? Do you want to build a straw man? Ooh, I might have to do a remix. Babe, make a note of that. Make a note of that. I might have to do like a dubstep remix. Do you want to build a straw man? Anyhow. Any hoot.
Pope Julius I changed when Christians celebrate Christianity in order to subvert a Roman worship of God, the Saturnalia celebration of her birth. Now, the reality is Christianity comes along and says, listen, December 25th, that's not a thing. We don't care about that. That's not a parallel. Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. Now, here's another issue. 3 kings who attended.
All right, real quick before we get to that. Yes, thank you, Ben, for the note. Dubstep remix of Do You Want to Build a Snowman stuff. Instead, want to build a straw man. And this is the comment of the night. Congratulations to Big Zebra. Golf equals Jesus because it takes him 3 days to play with his handicapped buddy. And for those that are not familiar with golf, the word handicapped is not actually talking about someone's physical disabilities. It's talking about your inability to play golf very well. It's called a handicap. So that's why the guy fucked it all up. But yeah, that shit's funny. I don't care what nobody says. And I meant to come back to this earlier and I forgot. So whoever paused, I'll do this now. So I don't have to pause again as soon as my ADHD motherfucking brain remembers it. But a comment earlier from Bible Burner. Myths and conspiracy theories are totally different things, bro. Yeah, like he used 9/11. 9/11 is not a myth. You can call it a conspiracy theory, but it's not a myth. Like, we know the fucking goddamn shit happened. We know that the buildings, thousands of people died, right? That's not a myth. Now, you can call it inside job or, all the people say. You can call that a conspiracy theory on why it happened, how it happened. But the events that took, events that took place are not myths. Is not a myth, but good try. Again, A for effort. I just want to point out, isn't it ironic that he's supposed to be teaching his congregation on how to defend, how to provide good argumentation to support the historicity, the biblical historical accuracy of this Jesus feller. But he's talking more about conspiracy theories, ancient Greek mythological made up gods than he is evidence. What's that tell you, people? Use that gray matter, please. And I'm not saying that to be a dick. Use that gray matter between your ears. All this is one big dance. He's playing charades, and the motherfuckers sitting in that building right now, in that auditorium, they're drinking they're drinking the juice more than we are tonight, and we're doing it on purpose. The fuck out of here.
The birth of this cosmic Messiah. What do we do with that? Well, the reality is Christianity doesn't ever teach that three kings. Where they get this is they look up in Orion's belt and they see three stars and then there's a lead star. And so that's obviously been up there for a while. And people say, look, Christianity just borrowed this thing and made it up about Jesus. Here's the problem with that. First, no one talked about those three stars following a lead star until about the 18th or 19th century. All right, so no one talked about those three stars as three kings following a lead star to a birth of a cosmic Messiah until 200 or 300 years ago. From now, this
West tomatoes. Tomatoes. And then bananas, because it's all bananas. BANANAS. That shit is all right, stop.
second issue is Christianity, again, I don't want to ruin anyone's Christmas, doesn't teach that three kings followed a star and arrived at the birth of Jesus. That's not what Christianity teaches. I know we dress our kids up in their little robes and we go out there, Tommy, be a king. And he's like, hey, I'm at the birth of Jesus. That's not actually what happened. You have to understand, the only story about anyone arriving at the birth of Jesus in the Gospels is in Luke's Gospel, and they're shepherds, that where the angels come and they arrive at the birth of Jesus. The Matthew narrative is about a group of people who arrive when Jesus is probably 2 years old, because they arrive in the house and they come to see the child, not the baby in the Greek, and it's probably a toddler. And it doesn't say there was three of them. And it doesn't say they were kings. It says they were magi, which were Babylonian and Persian magicians. And it says that they brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So us and all our creativity go, well, one guy must have been carrying the gold, the other guy had the frankincense, and the other guy had the myrrh. And so there must have been three. The Bible never tells us how many there were. There could have been 5. There could have been 40. We have no idea. And they weren't at the birth of Jesus anyway. And so these aren't even parallels. December 25th, not a parallel. 3 kings at the birth of Jesus, not a parallel. So what we got to start to understand is they actually get their facts wrong. What about Horus being crucified and resurrected on the
Huh? All right, so this is where we just gotta stop. We gotta. Gotta look it up, man. We gotta do the see. There's a difference between pastor, whatever your fucking name is. There's a difference between us here watching this video and reviewing it. The skeptical community, the devils, the God-hating, sin-loving motherfuckers. This is where we just go back to clarify. I mean, I was a Christian for 30 years, but I'll go back and do the homework just to be sure. Put shit in. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Oh, okay. So I'll give him some credit here. So, yeah, when you read it, it talks about the 3 gifts, but it does not specify how many wise men showed up. So you probably heard the story about the 3 wise men who visited Jesus just after his birth. However, it was Bible scholars who came up with the number 3. Nowhere in the Bible does it specify the number of wise men who came to visit Jesus. The scholars came up with 3 because of the number of gifts that were given to Jesus: frankincense, gold, and myrrh. So, all right, fair. I will concede when I'm wrong or my recollection is wrong, and I definitely recollected wrong on that, and I'll eat that. No, all right. So valid point, fair point. I'll shut the fuck up.
Third day, you get into the story of Horus. Most of the stories of Horus don't have him dying at all. The one that does, he dies and he falls into the water. He gets chopped up. Seems to be a theme back in these old stories. They like chopping people up. Falls into the water, and then he gets fished out by some crocodiles. And that's considered a resurrection parallel. So that's what we're talking about right now. In people's brains, when they say Jesus has a parallel with Horus, that's what they're talking about. Now, secondly, let's look at Mithras for a couple minutes. Born on December 25th, obviously not a parallel with Jesus. Shepherds attended his birth, and he was virgin born. The reality is Mithras was actually born fully.
Again, bro, you're spending almost your entire time talking about all of these other shits that we agree are made up. We agree these motherfuckers are made up, and you're using these made up motherfuckers as your evidence to try to I guess distort or fracture the parallels. I don't give a fuck about the parallels. I want to know where the evidence is, bro. Where's the evidence for this Jesus dude? I don't even care whether it was a spawn of an Egyptian or Greek, or I don't give a fuck what God. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Where's the evidence? I need the evidence, bro. And this is the one thing that it tickles me. It tickles me when I hear, I won't even say atheists, skeptics concede the Jesus character. And when I say the Jesus character, Jesus the Christ, the divine, that they'll just concede that, well, no, the guy existed. Like, we have every good reason to believe, oh, well, no, actually, it wasn't divine. I'm just talking about the dude. Like, none of the divinity of the dude. Well, then he's not Jesus of the book. He's not the fucking Jesus of the goddamn book, because the Jesus of the goddamn book was the divine Jesus. He either is who he says he was, or he's not. And we should be able to know that. There should be that evidence. My money in my mind.
Formed out of a rock. And so I'm not necessarily saying anything about the sexual activity of a rock. I'm just saying I'm not sure the rock was a virgin to give birth to Mithras, right? But this is the kind of dumb parallels we're talking about. Why would that be a virgin birth? Because he was born from a rock. Oh, good point, Tony.
Oh, you want to talk about ridiculous parallels? Let's do this. We have a group, a large group, but we have a group of folks that believe that there's a God. But then that God, that singular God, also suffers from either like some type of like multiple personality disorder, or there's something going on there, because now you identify as yourself, but then we have you're also you're the father, but you have a son, but you are the son. The son is you. Then there's this holy spirit thing that now all of a sudden is you, and you are it, but it's separate from you. This sounds like some lunatic shit. Like if you did exist and you were walking the earth, your fucking ass would be in the Looney Tune bin. Straight up. Straight up. I am one, but I am three. Three are one, but one is three. Huh? Come on, man.
Anyway, the whole Mithras idea was dated 200 years after the Gospels were written anyway, so most historians say that the whole Mithras cult was borrowing from Christianity. Let's deal with the last one here, and then we'll move on. They cite Attis, and Attis died, they said. He had a death and a resurrection. But here was the nature of Attis's resurrection. After Aegisthus, his father, caused his son to die, I won't tell you how, you can look it up later. It's too PG-13 for church. He died, and then his father went to Zeus and said, can you resurrect my son from the dead? And Zeus said, of course not, because resurrection is not a thing, but I will let Attis's pinky finger move eternally, and his hair will grow forever. That's considered resurrection in their parallels. So that's what we're talking about. Once you get into the data. Now, I've rhymed this off before, but I'll do it for you. And it's in my.
But just you saying they're using this as a parallel. You still didn't bring any evidence. You have not proven that Jesus exists or that he died and was resurrected. All of this is just blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, great point. 2 PG for church. Trying to talk about the historical accuracy of Jesus and bringing in other mythical creatures is 2 PC for church. But do we want to talk about slavery? Can we talk about that? Maybe if you really have them big pastor kahunas, you can talk about the disgusting levels of misogyny in your book, and probably that happens in your church, to be honest. Do you want to talk about the this all-loving, all-knowing God just wiping out his creation because he realized he fucked up, and he even said that he regretted it? Want to talk about that? Is that 2 PG? Do we want to talk about the countless times in the Old Testament that God thought it was really cool, man? Really cool for kids' heads to be like bashed on stones, and unborn babies being ripped out of mothers' wombs. You want to talk about that? You want to talk about how many times God said, I will not punish the child for the parents' sins or mistakes. But then how many times in the Bible it says, but actually you do have to pay. And not just you, but then generations after that. You know, was it 4 or 5, 6, whatever generations have to pay for those sins, for those mistakes. Man, the irony. Or better said, the hypocrisy. What's up, Darren? Good to see you. What up? What up? Yeah, psychological shackle breaks. Yeah, the dude. Look. I'm bald. Now I shaved my head, so I don't know if this motherfucker in the Bible was bald by choice or he took a Bic razor to his shit. But him got made fun of. Him got made fun of, so him prayed, and Yahweh sent them bears to eat him. Little bitch. What? You got that butt hurt by a couple of young dudes making fun of you because you bald? Man, come on. And then Yahweh actually followed through with that shit. Little bitch, you can't fuck with me if you wanted to.
My book as well, but it's something called, Craig Evans, who's a historian, talks about parallelomania, and he says if you just hone in on certain information, you can equate two things that have nothing to do with each other very easily. And he talks about the contrast of JFK and Abraham Lincoln. So I'll give it to you. He says this: both men were concerned with civil rights. Both were elected to Congress in 1846 and 1946. Lincoln was elected president in 1860, Kennedy in 1960. Both were slain on a Friday before a major holiday. Both were shot in the presence of their wives and in the presence of another couple. Of the other couple, the man was wounded, but neither wife was. Both were shot from behind in the head. Lincoln was shot in the Ford Theater in Box 7. Kennedy was shot in Car 7 of the Dallas motorcade. Both were pronounced dead at a location with the initials PH, Peterson House and Parkland Hospital. The successors of both men were named Johnson. Andrew Johnson was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson was born in 1908. Both assassins were privates in the military. John Wilkes Booth, 3 names, was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald, 3 names, was born in 1939. Booth fled from a theater to a library. Oswald fled from a library to a theater. Both assassins were taken into custody by a police officer named Baker. Lincoln was shot in the Ford Theater. Kennedy was shot in a Ford car. The model of the Ford was a Lincoln. How is that possible? Now, nobody says that JFK didn't exist because of all these parallels. It's a dumb argument, because here's what we have to do. We have to start understanding. You can isolate certain information and probably get anything out of it. A friend of mine looks exactly like
What? What? What the actual fuck did you just say? And again, just as a refresher, so y'all remember what the topic of the fucking stream is. Jesus is a myth. Mythicism. I personally, I find no good evidence to believe that Jesus ever existed, just like I believe, or I find no good reason to believe that Yahweh exists or ever existed. All of us, this motherfucker has, oh my God. This motherfucker has found a way to talk about everything but evidence or good reason to believe that Jesus ever existed. Not one time has he offered any evidence. Just so I'm accurate, we are basically 30 minutes into his sermon. Nothing. 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 But here's the thing. You're trying now. You're being completely dishonest right now. You're full of shit right now. You are like completely being a piece of shit right now, because the two people that you're talking about being elected and all this, guess what we have, Passa? Evidence. Evidence. We know these people existed. We have evidence. We know that these people existed, that they walked among us. Like, we know, bro. We know. So any of the other parallels that you're talking about are irrelevant, because we know that both the motherfuckers existed in real life. In real life. But what you're talking about is some other shit that we don't have evidence for. That a motherfucker walked around and he was like, oh, hey, yo, there's some dirt, man. Give me that dirt. And rubbing that shit on people's eyes, and then they're healed. Hey, y'all want to get down tonight? Y'all want to party? Oh, you broke? Cool. I'm going to turn the water into wine. Make sure you get fucked up. Oh, y'all don't believe me? You don't believe me that I'm Jesus? Watch me walk on this water, though. And then the motherfuckers gonna get like beat the fuck down, right? And brutally murdered. And then after 3 days, is gonna rise from the dead. And I've already did a stream on this before, so I don't waste a bunch of time talking about it. But my dad's been in the mortuary business for basically my entire life. A 3-day-old carcass, dead, no life, no heartbeat, no oxygen, no water, no any, like nothing. Sorry. It's not, the shit just, the shit isn't going to happen the way the Bible, at least one of the books, try to talk about it, try to say that it happened. Yep. Assembly of God, that's where I and I know Bart Ehrman is the one with the degrees, and I am not. I'm just following evidence and applying common sense. That's all I'm doing. Applying common sense, and I don't see a good reason. I just don't see it. Tang gang. Yeah, let's hear what the rest of this bullshit this motherfucker got to say. And one more before we go. Nope, that's not it. I didn't want that one. No crickets. I need the music though.
Hallelujah.
Oh, hallelujah. Praise him. Sipping on gin and juice. Let's get it.
My wife. And she said a couple months ago, she was out for dinner with her husband, and the waitress was acting very weird to her. And she didn't understand why. And she later found out that the waitress had been texting all night. And the story was that my wife, Erin, was out for dinner with another man because they look that similar. And so the story started to spread around her friends. The pastor's wife is sitting here with a man. I can't believe she's out with another man, much less good-looking man, much less strong, bulked up man. I can't believe, why would she do this trade?
Oh, I think we just got it. This man is living contradictory to the Bible. Do not think more highly of yourself than you ought. You think you're bulk? You think you're a big dude? I mean, if I just rode up on you on the streets, I would assume that it would be more likely than not that maybe some methamphetamines or one form or another of cocaine may be involved, because you're a little on the bony side, a little bit like a skeleton. And I'm not body shaming, but you're the one that just said you look bulky, or that you're like you have mass. Somebody done lied to you, bro. And yes, Jesus is still a myth.
You can isolate information and get anything you want out of it. So here's the deal. We got to start to look at now, this is not to claim, and here's a very important point. What do Christians do with this? This is not to claim that there weren't some parallels to Christianity that predate Christianity. Of course there were. Now, but what we got to understand is how we approach those. Justin Martyr, who was writing way back in the day, he was talking about Christianity, and he says this. He said, when we say that the Word, who is the firstborn birth of God, was produced without sexual union, and that he, Jesus Christ, our teacher, was crucified and died and rose again and ascended into heaven, we propound nothing different from what you believe regarding those whom you esteem sons of Jupiter. So he's talking to people who are involved in paganism. And he says, listen, Christianity came along after you, and I understand there are parallels to it. One of the ideas, actually, St. Augustine, he wrote this. He said, the very thing which is now, sorry, I'm just trying to move a quote here. The very thing which is now called the Christian religion existed before. It was not absent from the beginning of the human race until Christ himself came in the flesh, but it was then that the true religion that already existed began to be called Christian. It's this concept of a pre-Christian Christianity. In Colossians chapter 2, Paul says this, therefore let no...
Oh, I love it when they say that. I love it when they say that. What is a pre-Christ Christianity? Teacher, I'm a little confused. What is a pre-Christ Christianity? Because if Christ has not been revealed, Christ has not walked the earth, there is no Christ. How is there a Christianity? In Christianity, or being a Christian, is to be Christ, like a follower of. See where I'm going? And he's not the first that I've ever heard say that. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? Because nowhere in the Old Testament does it talk about Jesus Christ. Now, once the New Testament comes along, then obviously they try to build the parallels and the prophecies, especially in Daniel, to the coming of Emmanuel, God with us. Sorry. What? How is there a Christianity without a Christ? What it sounds like to me is that, just like we're talking about with you ripping off, whether it's pagan, Egyptian, Greek, where the fuck ever, from gods, you may have stole a little something from the old Hebrew Bible and then made it your own. And that is then what I call Paulinism. Oh, and they hate that. Because not all, but majority, especially fundamentalist Christians today. Yes, Darren, that would be Judaism. Yep, absolutely. But most modern day, especially fundamental, your evangelical Baptist, yada yada. The Old Testament is now discounted. It's done. Put it on a discount shelf at Walmart. Sell that shit, because it doesn't matter. Why? Because Jesus came to be the atonement. He came to replace all the fucked up shit that Yahweh did. And then it went from in the Old Testament. So think about this for a second. In the Old Testament, the type of evidence, if this God existed and anything in this book was real and actually happened, which I don't believe any of it did, but let's pretend. Let's go to play. Let's go to the playground for a minute and pretend that this shit happened. In the Old Testament, this is the kind of evidence they got: pillars of fire, a burning bush that speaks, a talking donkey, motherfuckers splitting water so that their families and friends can walk through the water. They would go to the lion's den with hungry lions, and the lions wouldn't even touch them. They could go into a fiery furnace where it should be melting your flesh and just burn you alive, and you walk out with no blemish. Like that, and there's more. There's more. But just for a few examples, that's the type of evidence that the New Testament people, that the Old Testament people state or assert or claim that they saw, felt, heard, yada yada yada. But as soon as we get to the New Testament and Paul shows up, oh dog, oh yeah, oh, how did I forget about that one? That's one of my favorites. Thank you. Real quick, I do have to hit this. Oh, where'd he go? Hey, I don't know about you. I ain't trying to give it. I ain't trying to give it swallowed by no fish. And then that fish regurgitate. Oh, it tastes so nasty. You know what I mean? Come on, man. But then we get to the New Testament. Think about this. Here is the evidence. Here's the evidence. We have 4 gospel accounts, anonymous authorship. Because let's be real, nobody back then were named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Oh, that shit's funny. So we have 4 accounts. We have no idea who fucking wrote the shit. Then we have Paul that had this Damascus Road experience thing, hallucinogenic shit that nobody was around for. You are supposed to base your entire faith, your entire belief on but what this motherfucker said. What? And that's why I'll say this. We'll get back in the video. The Apostle Paul, and remember, before that, the dude, according to what historians in the Bible says, the dude was a criminal, right? He was known for ripping people off and taking advantage of Christians and even killing Christians. He was an outcast. He was just trying to get in where he fit in. And all of a sudden, these motherfuckers started believing what the fuck he was saying after he had this experience. Think about that. Think about if somebody came up today and told you that I was on this lonely road and I had this experience and God revealed himself to me. And now I have all of these writings that we are supposed to live by and abide by. Oh, who's that sound like? David motherfucking Koresh. You're welcome, bitches.
One pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath. These are a shadow of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. Basically what he's saying is there were anticipations of the Christ story in human history built into the fabric of the kinds of stories we told long before Christianity and the gospel actually came on the world. But it was so God had built it into cultures. We told this story to ourselves until it became true. Until we could say, now this actually happened in history, historically. It's not an esoteric story. It's not a metaphor. This is what you got to understand when the Apostle Paul is writing in 1 Corinthians 15, and he's saying, listen, if the resurrection didn't happen, we are to be the most pitied of people because we're all getting killed for this thing. We're all getting ripped apart for this thing. He's not sitting around coming up with a religion about esoteric.
Really quick, I have to hit this. Stop, Christians, stop with this victimhood and acting like your life is so difficult as a Christian, especially here in America. You get catered to. You get catered to. When you become a believer, let's say somebody walks into a church, whatever, and they give their hearts to God. They like that type of decision, quote unquote, or position is widely accepted, and people embrace it. And especially if you're a new convert, it's like, yeah, good for you, praise God, right? So stop acting like you're persecuted. You're not. You're being a bitch. That's what you're doing. Because for myself and many, even the side chat right now that'll watch this later, try to be on the other side of that decision. That you were indoctrinated and force-fed this shit and told and instructed that this is true. These are facts. And this is how you should live your life according to this God in this book. Try to be on this side of it. When you say, you know what? No, fuck that. Fuck that. I've done the research and I'm doing the research. I've done the study and I continue to study. I'm seeking evidence and continue to seek evidence. In every single corner that I turn, and every time I turn around, there's less and less and less and less good reasons to believe this shit. And then you lose family. You lose friends. You lose purpose. You lose like all of these things that you tied your entire fucking existence to. And notice I haven't even included all the shit that Christians talk about us. And I won't. Because I'm not a victim. I don't need to do that. I don't need to play that card. I know where I'm at. I know what I've done. And I'm proud. So I don't need to play that card. But come sit on this side of the table, bruh. Walk away from all that shit that makes your life comfy and cushy and soft and warm. And I love Jesus. Because remember, it does say like on license plates and on dollar bills and everything here in America, in God we trust. In God we trust. In God we fucking trust. Fuck you and your persecution bullshit. I just want evidence, bro. That's all. If y'all can provide evidence, I'll believe in Jesus. I'll believe in Yahweh. I'll believe what. That doesn't mean I'll serve them, but I'll believe. I'll believe because you demonstrated, you showed the evidence, you gave it. But you went from talking about wanting to discuss the biblical historical accuracy for a Jesus to now you literally went all the way to the depths of the most pathetic argument you can make as a Christian theist, and that is we are persecuted. Fuck off.
Philosophical ideas. He's saying this really happened. This was a historical person, and if he didn't exist, then we're to be the most pitied of people in the world because we're dying for nothing. There are Christ myth proponents who say, oh, the Apostle Paul, he didn't care about history. That's why he doesn't ever talk about the birth of Jesus. He only talks about Jesus, the Christ, the mystical one, the one you can connect to spiritually. That's why he never talks about the birth. He never talks about how many disciples he had. Listen, that is to misunderstand Paul's whole point. He says, if this guy didn't really live, really die, and really raise from death, we're to be the most pitied of all people. The Apostle Paul cared about history more than anybody. If we just came up with him, we're in a lot of trouble. And so here's what C.S. Lewis said, who studied all of these myths before he became a Christian. And then he became a Christian. And here's what he said. He said, the old myth of the dying God comes down from the heaven of legend and imagination to the earth of history. It happens at a particular date in a particular place. From Osiris dying, nobody knows when or where, to a historical person crucified. It's all in order. Under Pontius Pilate, it says, Christ is more than Osiris, not less. We must not be ashamed of the parallels. They ought to be there. It would be a stumbling block if they weren't. Those who do not know that this great myth became fact when the Virgin conceived are indeed to be pitied.
So the best evidence that this motherfucker has brought so far is from a dude that is infamous and globally known for doing what? For writing fictional material. So that's the best evidence you have, bro? Like now we're come on, man, this is getting pathetic. We're 32, 33, whatever, I can't tell. We're getting towards the end, but we're 30 something minutes in, and the best evidence, and it's garbage, it's fucking bullshit, but the best evidence that you've brought to the table is C.S. Lewis said. Well, C.S. Lewis is notorious and globally known for writing fictional material. That's it, bro. That's all you got. Like we do. You don't want, like you're not gonna cite like some actual like historians or even theologians, or like, you went to C.S. Lewis that writes make believe shit. Come on, man. And then people wonder why the mythicist position is growing in popularity, because there's no good evidence, man. And you're a pastor. You're demonstrating it. You are actively demonstrating it. There is no good evidence to support this claim. And yes, this is what I'll say. Narnia. So if you want to draw parallels or you want to equivocate, I will equivocate and draw parallels between Narnia and this fake world that Jesus the Christ lived in. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Paul took this shit and ran with it. He is the original MLM CEO and pimped the fucking shit out of the word faith. Straight up.
So here's what we got to understand. It makes sense that these stories had rhythms and patterns before Christianity ever came about. So if the Christ myth isn't true, that clears the way for the Bible to be true. And here's what you and I have to start to understand, that historically speaking, skeptics come at the Bible and say, no, the Bible's not true, and I'll tell you why. It was changed too much. It was written too far. When I'm sitting with people and they're challenging the Bible, this is what they claim, right? It was made up, it was legend, it was written too far after the fact, it was changed all over the place. Here's what we got to understand. First, most historians recognize that the Old Testament and the New Testament are the most trusted documents in antiquity. Out of any documents that were going around spreading ideas, Christianity, the Old Testament, the New Testament was founded, and it's to be the most trusted documents actually in history.
Yeah, I was waiting for my track to end, but yeah, I'm gonna need a citation. I'm gonna need receipts, bro. Because this is and this is another thing that's problematic. These preachers get up here and they spew this shit, and nobody holds them accountable, man. Nobody holds them accountable. It's infuriating. Ugh. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What historian, what person, whomever that has the actual like credibility, degree, whatever it is to you, somebody could say some shit like that. I need the receipts, bro. Show me the goddamn receipts that says that anyone says that the Old Testament, the New Testament of the Bible is the most dependable, the most accurate, the most whatever historical document on the planet. I need goddamn motherfucking receipts pronto. The fuck is you talking about, bro? Huh?
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
I need a drink.
I'm a bad boy.
Were the documents ever changed? That's a question. They weren't. And here's how we know. There's been documents of Isaiah. There's all kinds of pagan documents where you find one and it was written 200 years after that one. It's found in another geographical location, and they're just totally different stories, totally different teachings. And so what they found is scrolls of Isaiah written 800 years apart in two totally different geographic regions of the world. And what blew them away is that it was exactly the same. 95% of the text was exactly the same, which actually caused Gleason Archer, who's a historian, to say that this is actually the most, I can't believe that there were no changes. He says when they found the scrolls in the Dead Sea in 1947, it was 1,000 years earlier than the oldest dated manuscripts previously known, and they proved to be word for word identical with our standard Hebrew Bible in more than 95% of the text. And so there's people who go, okay, fine, I get it. Old Testament was intact because you got to understand, these guys cared about the writing of the text, right? You know, when you're reading the Gospels and it said there's scribes and Pharisees, you know what the scribe's job was? To sit around and copy text, but they weren't doing it alone in a room. They had two guys over their shoulders, and every time they made a little mistake, they would have to mark it and initial it and then move forward. It wasn't some guy in a dark room who just walked out. He's like, okay, here's Isaiah, everyone. Anyone want to read it? I just wrote it. It's like there was scribe. And this is why the Old Testament and New Testament, there's no differences between these things. Now, there's some skeptics who say, yeah, but what about all the disputed passages? The New Testament's not legitimate. I can't read that. All the disputed passages, all the contradictions, all the mistakes all over the New Testament, you can't trust them. There's people who build a life on going around lecturing this stuff. Here's what you got to understand. There are literally two passages in your New Testament that scholars actually say probably weren't part of the original manuscripts, all right? One of them is at the end of the Gospel of Mark, Mark 16, and you can kind of tell because Jesus starts talking about people being bitten by snakes, and it's like, I don't know if it really sounds like Jesus. And the other one is actually John 8, 1-11, which is kind of sad for most people because it's the story of the woman caught in adultery. You know, the story where they bring her and he starts drawing on the ground? The reality is most scholars, conservative scholars would say that was not originally part of the Gospel of John at all. Now, Christianity is not trying to hide this. Any Bible you open, it says it right above the story. This was not part of the original manuscripts. I talked to skeptics like, hey, I found, because I was on the internet the other day, because I live in my parents' basement and I spent a lot of time on Reddit in my PJs. And I found out that John 8 wasn't original. Ha, I've got you. It's like, it says it in my Bible, dude. Right above the story. Now, what about the contradictions? I've shared some of these before. People say, well, you don't understand all the contradictions.
And again, this is what Christianity does, especially pastors in America, and this American version of Christianity, whatever the fuck that means. This appeal to emotion and anger, and that people are trying to take things from you. People are trying to steal from you. You must defend this thing that you have and that you hold. And bro, the reason you're getting this butthurt, the reason you're becoming this defensive, the reason that you've now, as a pastor in front of a congregation, reduced yourself to attempting to humiliate or embarrass or ridicule skeptics, I will point that out, is because you don't have the evidence. You don't have the proof. You don't have the good reasons why someone should believe that a Jesus actually walked. You don't have good evidence that your God actually exists. You don't have a good reason. That's why now, as much as you want to play to the emotions of your congregation, you're now in your emotions, you're in your feels, and it's showing. Because you know, if you don't speak this way and you don't build up all of this energy, and you don't project all of this passion right now, you're going to fall short. Why? Because we're almost 40 minutes in. We're almost at the end of your sermon. And not one time, Reverend, not one time have you presented any evidence for the life of Jesus. And the title of your message is The Problem of the Christ Myth. That's the title of your message. But not one time, Reverend, have you provided one single iota, one glimpse, one nugget, one anything that would demonstrate that Jesus, the Christ, the Jesus of the Bible did exist. Not once. All you've done is build straw mans and deflect and deflect and deflect and run around and then talk about presidents that got elected and numbers and middle names and shit. But you've not one time provided any convincing evidence. So you have a few minutes left in your sermon. I'm going to make the decision to be charitable and not cut the video off. I'm actually going to play it out and see if you actually bring any evidence at the end, because sometimes people wait to the very end to, bring their knockout punch. So I'll wait. But so far, your appeal to emotion and you're projecting and deflecting, and now adopting this that you were attacked or abused or persecuted because of your belief or your faith. That's bullshit. Now we need the evidence. So let's get to the evidence. Hopefully you got it.
Okay, what are the contradictions? Did Judas, one passage says Judas killed himself. The other passage says that his bowels just spilled out all over the ground. Right. Those don't contradict each other. He hung himself. Over time, the rope broke and his bowels spilled out all over the ground. What's the difference? People say, okay, fine, but what about the angels? In one gospel, the gospel writer says there was 2 angels there, and another one says that there was 1 angel there. No, one gospel tells us that 1 spoke. The other one told us there was 2 there. This gospel over here was only interested in the one talking. He was not interested in how many angels were there. This one was actually interested in how many angels were there. Now, let me tell you one that I haven't really shared with you before that I think is very fascinating. And I've had this in debates with people as well. They point out that the Gospel of Mark in the first verse is actually a mistake, and that's why you shouldn't trust it. And here's the example. So the Gospel of Mark, I'm going to put this on the screen for you. Mark chapter 1, verse 1 reads this way, and you can look it up in your Bible later. It says, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. As it is written in Isaiah the prophet, quote, behold, I send my messenger before your face who will prepare your way. Now, here's what skeptics point out. When he says Isaiah the prophet, the problem is, behold, I send my messenger is actually a quote from Malachi, or as my friend likes to say, Malachi, the Italian prophet. That's actually a quote from Malachi. So, we have a mistake in the Bible. He says he's quoting Isaiah, and then he quotes Malachi, throw the Gospel of Mark out. Now, that for years and years was actually recognized as a mistake in the Bible. But here's what scholars point out. Lots of scholars have done amazing work in regard to the book of Mark. And what they realize is when you're reading the book of Mark, the whole book is actually, there's not probably a chapter in the whole Gospel of Mark that doesn't quote Isaiah. And all the themes of Mark are coming through what scholars call Isaiah's new Exodus, showing Jesus as the new Moses leading about the new Exodus. And what scholars point out is the better way to probably read this grammatically, because remember, there was no commas or periods or quotation marks back in the day. It's just all letters, like a big strand. That the better way to actually read Mark chapter 1, verse 1 is this way. The beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, as it is written in Isaiah the prophet. Stop, colon. Then he starts his whole book, meaning read the my entire gospel as if it's presenting Jesus as the fulfillment of the book of Isaiah. Stop thought. Then he starts his book and he quotes Malachi at the D, right? And he starts into Malachi and he goes, he's not making a mistake. He's saying, read the next 16 chapters, read them as a reframing of the book of Isaiah. Read Jesus through the filter of the prophet Isaiah. Done my thought. That's the opening thought of the entire gospel. Now go and read the next 16 chapters. See, here's what we got to understand. The Bible over and over and over again shows itself to be true when we fumble it.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. Huh? Well, I could probably do a whole episode just on the last 3 minutes that he. What? What? But again, staying on topic, how does this prove that Jesus existed? That like that's the name of your sermon, bro. This is not me like trying to cherry pick or make fun or anything. Literally, the name of your fucking sermon is The Problem of the Christ Myth. You have not addressed the problem, as you see it, with the Christ myth. Because if anything, so far, you've only further convinced me that Jesus is in fact a myth. And what is disheartening and what is disgusting and what is disturbing is that so many people in your congregation right now are eating your words up, and they take it, they receive it, and they believe it to be true. Why? Because for some goddamn reason, they trust you and your skinny jeans. So yes, we still need that evidence. So I'm gonna give him like 5 to 7 more minutes, and then after that, I'm done.
And we do fumble it. This is why archaeologists say you don't understand. There's never been anything in a biblical claim that has been actually proven false in regard to archaeology. Sir Frederick.
Oh, where's Pat? Where's Pat? I need Pat. Where's Pat? Oh, God damn it. Fuck. Are you serious, bro? Okay, 5 to 7 minutes.
G. Kenyon, the former director of the British Museum, says this way: in no other case is the interval. Oh, no, sorry, that's the wrong quote. I was going to be talking about manuscripts. Here, Nelson Glueck, a renowned Jewish archaeologist. It may be stated categorically that no archaeological discovery has ever contradicted a biblical reference. Out of all the archaeological things that can be said, I remember there were years in the early 1900s at universities where they would teach that John chapter 5 wasn't real because it said that there were 5 roofed colonnades in this particular area, and they'd done their digging and they never found any. And so they just made fun of the Bible, punched it, and said, don't. And people graduated and lived their life and died and said, I don't believe in the Bible. And then a few years later, they dug a little deeper and they found exactly what John chapter 5 explains. I've been there. I've stood there and touched those colonnades and almost started crying because I thought about the generations of people who punched their Bible and said, I don't believe in this stuff. And then they just dug a little deeper and they found that archaeology vindicates the Bible over and over and over again. Now, why do people actually trust it? Because there's 2 things when you're looking into manuscripts, the New Testament manuscripts. There's 2 things you look for in regard to legitimacy. The first is the number of manuscripts that you have, so you can compare mistakes. And the second is how long after the events they actually took place. And so let me give you a little bit of context to this. And I talk about this in the book as well, if you need to reference this. So outside of the New Testament, here's the number of manuscripts that other works of antiquity had that people looked at and fully trust. Thucydides reported in his writings as historically accurate. In existence, he had 8 copies, the earliest transcribed 1,300 years after the events of which he wrote. 8 copies of his work, and historians say this is legit. This is factual. We trust Thucydides. Aristotle's Poetics. There's 5 copies dated 1,400 years after the originals. Caesar's Gallic Wars. There's 3 manuscripts from 1,000 years after his death. What about the New Testament? The New Testament has 25,000 copies of it, way beyond anything that anybody trusts in the ancient world. And how long were they written after the fact? 15 to 25 years after, which means there was not a lot of room for mythology and legend to actually get. Christianity over and over and over again shows itself to be legitimate in regard to the documents. Now, here's the issue at the end of the day. Personally, I think what we got to understand is this. I want you guys to trust the Bible. And if you're a skeptic and you're exploring Christianity, here's what you got to understand. Do you want to know how I encounter? You know, Augustine said the Bible is the face of God for us now. Here's the power of it. When I was a 17-year-old kid, it took me 2 or 3 years to ever walk into a church, which means I met God in a very powerful way long before I ever came into a church. And where I met him was the Bible. I didn't know anything about Christianity. I didn't have mentors in my life. I didn't have community. I didn't have pastors. What I would do was I would go out and smoke a pack of cigarettes and read the Bible. And I encountered the power of it actually changed me. Like these words, Isaiah says, my word will not return back to me void. That when you let it, like, here's the problem. You're judging, if you're a skeptic, you judge the New Testament or the Old Testament, but you haven't even read it. And when you read it, like read the Gospels, read the Gospel of Mark, read Matthew, which we've been preaching through for 4 years. Read it and the encounter, like I actually encountered the God behind the Bible when I read it. I would sit out with my eye.
So all of you Christians that are claiming that you experienced and you felt and you saw and you heard from this God that's behind this Bible that inspired this goddamn motherfucking book, please tell us, where is the evidence? How do we get there? How do we experience what you experienced? That's all we're asking. Because if a simple mind, just a simple human mind, can write a book like the 5 love languages, talking about just simply how we interact with each other as human beings, and how each of us communicate in a certain way, and there's certain ways that we engage and interact with each other that are more meaningful than others. If we can write a book, when I say we, a human can write a book with just that simple premises, how does this God not get it? How does this God not know my 1 or 2 love languages that would show and demonstrate that Jesus existed, that God exists, and that God loves me and sent Jesus to die for me and to raise from the dead for me? Why does he not understand that? Why does he not do that? But yet there's a simple-minded human motherfucker on this planet that wrote a book talking about how we can best communicate to each other with simple love languages, and how we should love each other and take care of each other and communicate to each other. Why is it we can figure that out? Why is it that we can do that, but this God motherfucker can't seem to figure this shit out? And even back in Exodus said he regretted even starting this shit. Please tell me. Please, someone tell me. And when you do tell me, drop all the persecution shit, please. Fuck that.
A friend named Heather, and she was a Wiccan witch. All right, she would be dressed all in black, and I'd be sitting out there in my little khakis and my polo, and I would smoke a pack of cigarettes and read the Bible, and she'd be like, "Hey, you should go to Summerland," and I'm like, "Yeah," and I'd read the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus would just say something, and I'd do it. Hey, man, if somebody asks you for your cloak, give them your shirt as well. And I just like, somebody asked me for a cigarette. Here, take the whole pack. Let me get you a carton. Jesus wants you to have it. All right, he told me to give it to you. Because all I had was the Bible. I'm honestly telling you, right? Yeah, get through all this data, whatever. We have to do that. We had to do that in order to understand why people are compelled to come against Christianity from a historical perspective. Fine, that might not be your thing. Here's what you got to understand. Give the Bible a shot, because what you're going to find, you will meet God in it. I'm telling you this. He took me.
Give it a shot? Give it a shot? That's your best argument, bro? God damn it. God damn it. After 40 fucking minutes, the best evidence that you're going to give me, give us, those that watch on your shit here, give it a shot? We got shots, bro. Give it a shot? That's the best you got. That's the best you got. Give it a shot. Nah, dog. Not for me.
Me from a 17-year-old kid, a drug kid, throwing rocks through windows, stealing from cars to get money to buy more drugs, hanging out, just a nonsense life. No idea where my life was going. Probably to a very bad place. And I encountered him for 2 years just reading this. And then I just started to get on fire. And I started walking around my town. And I would just start, I'd go at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd be going, this woman would be crying on her porch. Now it feels creepy, but I would just walk up to her and go, can I pray for you, lady? Boom. And I just start praying for her. Right now I'd be arrested. And I just pray for her that she would take feel the peace and the mercy of Jesus. I remember preaching to a group of people and just having a Bible and saying, listen, you guys are half hammered, but you need to meet Jesus. A guy accepts Christ. He said, I want to be baptized right now. And I baptized him in Lake Ontario at 2 a.m. I wasn't even baptized yet.
He was drunk, motherfucker. He was drunk. He had an emotional experience because you provoked his emotions. Congratulations, you piece of shit salesman. Congratulations.
Like, that's not even theologically correct. There's nothing about that should work. Everything about that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with the fact I met him. This is trusted. This is powerful. Every word of it is true. Old Testament, New Testament. From a liberal standpoint and conservative standpoint, most scholars agree this is the most trusted text in antiquity. You compare it, you trust it, feel the weight of it, give it a shot, and it will show, as it does, Christ myth, false. The myth becoming fact in history, true and powerful. And the question becomes, do you let that then shake you and give your life to it? Let me just pray for us. Father, I am grateful for your grace. I'm grateful that you actually came.
No, fuck that shit. Like I told the street preacher, I did some SE the other day on the corner here in Fort Wayne during the little festival that's going on, and unfortunately my AirPods were all fucked up, so the audio is terrible. But at the end of it, the reason I bring that up is the same thing. Like, if Christians want to pray for me, cool, pray for me. But my personal boundaries and the lines I draw is you're not going to pray with me. You're not going to touch me. I'm not holding your hand. None of that. So when I walk away, if you want to pray for me, cool. Do what the fuck you do. Do what the fuck you do. But you're not going to pray with me. I don't need your prayers. But anyhow, I just want to highlight once again that the name of this pastor's sermon, it was the title of his sermon. So it's not like I went out of my way to create something out of nothing. The title of his sermon was The Problem with the Christ Myth. And he had about 40 minutes of preaching and if that's what you want to call it, bullshitting. And not one time, not once, not one time did he provide any evidence for the existence of a Christ. And for the record, for me, as a mythicist, this is where even atheists and skeptics and I butt heads. I don't care about the historicity of just a Jesus minus the divinity, because if the divinity is not included, is not encapsulated into that, then we're not talking about the same dude, right? Because it's either Jesus the Christ, the divine, walking on water and spitting on dirt and healing blind eyes and raising people from the dead. It is either that motherfucker or it's not. It's one or the other. There's no gray there. So when I go into these conversations, I want to see good evidence, convincing evidence that there was, in fact, indeed, some son of a bitch somewhere, sometime, someplace, whatever, that was spitting in dirt and rubbing it in people's eyes and turning water into wine and walking on water and like doing, like, I need evidence. Because as a skeptic, fuck atheism for a minute. Fuck it. Throw that shit to the side of the room for a minute. Just applying skepticism. I'm following the evidence or lack thereof for the Jesus claim, just like I do the Yahweh claim. And guess what? Neither of them provide any good evidence to believe either of those motherfuckers existed, or that the claims are true or accurate or just follow. Yeah, I'll say it. Follow the evidence. There's not much to follow. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of, well, what if and what if not, and what if and what could, but there's no convincing evidence. And I'm sorry. If this motherfucker was sent to this planet from this God that's all-knowing, all-powerful, blah, 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 he was sent here to die for humanity, for all of humanity, for anyone that would choose to follow him and his ways. There would be way more evidence that motherfucker actually put on sandals, got up in the morning and walked around and lived life like in our reality, what we understand to be reality. We would have way more evidence. Period. And to the pastors like this joke that talked tonight, I'll say this, I'll wrap it up, and we can go to the Discord and have more of a open conversation for those that want to hang out and chat about this. And if you're a subscriber to or supporter of Tang, this is probably my second or third favorite topic to talk about. But what's bullshit, Reverend, whatever your name may be, I would love to have the opportunity to visit a church and be a special speaker, like a but invited, like not just, you know, obviously just running in there in front of a congregation, whatever church, it doesn't matter to me, and have the conversation about Jesus with a pastor of a church in front of his congregation. Because typically what happens is what we just watched and what we just saw and what we just heard is there's no actual like, oh, Oz, here's the evidence that clearly supports the life of Jesus, and that Jesus emphatically, like we can know that Jesus existed. It never happens. It's always a straw man, or deflection, or a plea to ignorance, or whatever it is. It's just this constant dodge where it's well, but what about the Jesus guy though? And an atheist asks, well, Oz, why do you get so hung up? And I'll close with this. Now I sound like a pastor. I'll close with this. Yeah. I'm gonna close with this, saints.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, hallelujah.
Amen.
Hey, man, we're gonna close with this. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. I do. I have atheists or / skeptics ask me, "What, Oz? Why do you care about that? Why would you put so much energy into the Jesus conversation?" Well, I actually look at it opposite. I'm like, why do you put so much energy into the Yahweh conversation? Because when it comes to Christianity, why? There would be no Christianity if there wasn't a Christ. If there was not a Christ that was crucified and raised after 3 days, there would be no Christianity. You've now completely dispelled and dismantled their doctrine, their theology, their position. You have literally ripped all of that shit out of their hands. If Jesus is a myth, and when I say if, that means for anyone else watching, I'm pretty damn confident that Jesus is a made up dude. You strip that away from Christianity, that religion is now, you fold it up, pack it up, it's gone, it's done, it's bullshit. Why? Because the only way via Christianity that your soul can be saved is through the crucifixion and the resurrection of said Jesus. So as soon as you eliminate that motherfucker and all the fucking bullshit miracles that they attribute to this dude, as soon as you strip that away, Christianity's toast, man. It's toast. Gone. So I'll hit this real quick and I'll close and we'll go to Discord if anyone wants to hang out. But we do have a super sticker right here at the end. Sipping on gin and juice. Laid back. Thank you, Ian Davenport, and also supported way at the top of the stream. But as always, Ian, thank you for your support. Appreciate you. I good shit tonight, babe. That's what the girlfriend says. So fuck what y'all say. And all of us need to take a good healthy shit once in a while. We all need a good shit once in a while. And Yes, Moses is a myth as well. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, John. Good to see you, DeAndre. And I'll just keep going through. Kira, yep. All right, I'll wrap it up. So we're gonna go. Let me put the 90s, y'all. I don't know if Jena means go put your 90s on or. What that means, but so I was just thrilled to see everybody live and in the building, son. Yeah, Boomba Clap boy to the Rasta. But no, thank you everybody for hanging out. And I haven't. You know what? I haven't, because usually when I'm live and I'm like enthralled in my conversation, I lose my sword. So I'm gonna do this and then I'm going to close. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to the one and the only Titan, your anus.
Yeah. This is for all you non-philosophizing black sheep, unwelcome, pushed to the side motherfuckers like me.
Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Let's get down to business. These bitches got glitches. And you thought you'd dismiss us? Nah. Now I'm laughing in stitches. See, the problem be, it'll be a tragic travesty to come after me. So just know this is how we get down. Respect that shit like a pronoun, bitch. Yeah, fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah, and fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah, fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah, fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way.